What if science fiction inspired real scientific breakthroughs? What if imagination helped shape the future of neurotechnology? Welcome to the Neurocareers, Doing the Impossible, where today we explore how storytelling can ignite innovation with our guest Dante Therese, a science fiction author, screenwriter, and researcher whose work bridges the gap between speculative fiction and scientific possibility. Dante is the author of the Base Trilogy, a suspenseful science-inspired series that follows military scientists racing against time to develop breakthrough technologies while navigating the threats of espionage. From synthetic cartilage and robotic limbs to speech restoration and facial mimicry, Dante's fiction draws deeply from real-world advancements in brain-computer interfaces, biomedical engineering, and cognitive neuroscience. In this episode, we discuss how imagination fuels scientific discovery, what it takes to turn the research into narrative, and how creative minds like Dante's are contributing to a growing ecosystem of neurotechnology innovators, even from outside the lab. You'll also hear about Dante's journey turning novels into films, writing music for her trailer, and staying true to her vision when the path gets tough. If you're an aspiring neurotech professional, a scientist in search of creative spark, or a storyteller looking to integrate real science into your work, this episode will remind you of the power of staying curious, open-minded, and resilient. Let's dive into the story behind the science and discover how doing the impossible sometimes begins with a single imaginative idea. Welcome, Dante. It's a great pleasure to have you on our podcast. Thank you for coming.
Thank you also for having me. I really enjoy the podcast of yours that I had tuned into because, you allow us to explore beyond. It used to be that if you were someone who allowed your thoughts to go outside of the lines or explore things that others didn't give full credence to or acceptance to, you were sort of smacked down. It was like, oh, you're not allowed to think about that. These are the rules. Stay within the lines, almost like a coloring book. And what you're doing is you're telling people, open up your minds a bit. Allow yourselves to be like a child and be inquisitive and see what else is out there and just keep an open mind. And I really respect that about what you do because I think it's important that we keep an open mind and that we just realize that we don't know everything. And perhaps if we listen a little harder, we may learn things.
Yes, thank you so much for acknowledging that. And that's why I call this creative exploration. We can be creative. Nobody can prohibit us from that. And it's just really, like you said, keeping that mind open. It doesn't mean we believe in things we can choose to do or not to do that, but to have that creativity and we can apply it in so many other areas of life. I think it's very important. And I feel that the world is changing, that people are becoming more open-minded. And I think that's very important to support people in this movement at this time. And now my question is for you. How did you open your mind and decide to start writing in this field of science fiction? How did that happen for you?
I'm a believer in holding on to your imaginative spirit. And you really should never let that part of you die. I think a lot of people sort of equate maturity with stifling imagination.
Yeah.
And I don't think that equals maturity. Maturity equals like taking responsibility and some other characteristics that you wouldn't have as a child. But imagination is something that you should keep with you always. And you should just always explore creative endeavors and stuff like that. The arts are oxygen, and reading is very important, and not just to stay informed and stuff like that, but also to allow your mind to wander. And when it does wander into these other realms and these creative realms and stuff like that, you're giving it a rest. Because if we are only focusing on hard facts and things like that, you can wear your brain out. You want to give it a chance to explore other realms and other ideas and creative things, because that just helps it wander and it gives it a new type of exercise. It's good for you.
I absolutely agree. And the same from scientific perspective. We have several modes of thinking, yes.
Mm,
So one is very focused, attention, focused on solving certain problems, thinking about something. And another is that relaxed, diffused mode when we let our mind wander. And many beautiful things were created during those moments. And we know, I think, in Thomas Edison, use some of those techniques of letting his mind wander. Salvador Dali,
yes.
he was kind of falling asleep, but not totally. And he had his keys in his hands. And at that moment, keys would start dropping, and he would start then trying to remember what happened during that time when he was getting from this active state into that state of relaxation and sleep. And he was thinking about his new paintings. I absolutely agree with you that that is an essential part. And for some reason, we have this feeling that we should not do it. We're adults, we're serious people, so you should not do it. But actually, it's not true. We wouldn't have this amazing invention like we had from Einstein's, yes, relativity theory, if people wouldn't let themselves to wonder and be in that state of imagination and thinking about things that are beyond what we know. We wouldn't discover them at all.
Right. No, it's important. And I give a lot of credence to that. And when I started writing the base series, the science fiction series, there were ideas that I had, and I did a lot of research for the books. I wanted to make sure that they were factually accurate from a scientific standpoint. But it was interesting, these little ideas that I had daydreamed or wondered about. There are scientists around the globe researching some of them.
Yeah.
And so I thought it's just amazing, because I think a lot of science is actually rooted in people being able to allow themselves to explore imagination and ideas like that. And if you can allow yourself to do that, you open the door to discoveries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was really interested in finding out, like, how many scientists, they may have some crazy dream. They may say, I have this idea, and everyone may think, oh, you're crazy, and why don't you grow up, or something like that. But then when it becomes a reality, it's not a joke anymore. I mean, it's real. And it's just because they allowed themselves to explore, experiment, and see if they could make some of their dreams or little ideas come to fruition.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. And in general, I wonder who is that doesn't allow us. So it's us who don't allow ourselves to dream. There is no somebody who controls and tells us, yes, you should not dream. You should not try thinking outside this realm. But we're imposing this on ourselves. And I wonder, why do we do that? Where is it coming from? This notion that we should be just very logical and focused because we're adults, like you said. What do you think? What are the origins of this limitation that we're imposing on ourselves?
Well, I think there is a big emphasis as you get older in conformity. And so if someone isn't conforming, sometimes as children, even, they will bully that person to sort of stay in the group think. And so conformity is one thing. And another thing is that if you stand out, like if you excel, sometimes you get bullied for that. And so a lot of people, they just decide to let me lay low, let me not try, let me not say what's going on in my head, and just kind of stifle those ideas. And then I'll take the easy way out. Then no one will say anything bad about me. No one will call me crazy. No one will put down my ideas or my new recipes or something like that if I just keep it all inside. If you don't do anything, you don't give anyone anything to criticize, but then you've done nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a very sad thing. And I think that we need to do something.
Yeah.
You know,
Especially we're not alone. There are many people who are letting this imagination fly and then bring new things into this world, new ideas. Maybe, yes, we got bullied. Maybe there were cases like that, but that's just something that already is not here anymore. And maybe we should connect like we're doing right now with like minded people who also are
yes,
on the same frequency as us.
exactly. Well, I think that's important. I mean, I think maybe a lot of people stifling themselves comes from like they don't want to stand out too much. They don't want to attract maybe negative attention or have others criticize them and stuff like that. But I think you need to be brave. You need to accept yourself.
Yeah.
And if you can accept yourself and if you can do some of the things that you're passionate about without the fear of rejection and things like that, yes, you do open yourself up a bit. But on the other hand, you open yourself up to a lot of good things.
Yeah.
You can connect with others with the same interests. And you may get praise for some of the things you do. And then it also just feels good to accomplish some of these goals and some of these things that you've always sort of had in your head. It feels good to have a three-dimensional thing that you can hold on to, like this is my book, or to look at something that was a patch of weeds and see flowers coming up in there and say, well, I did that.
Yeah, yeah. That I created this little reality, but it's mine. It's my creation, yes? So you're being a creator in a way. And one thing that I'm always wondering about that we are very eager to follow other people's ideas. So the ideas that our employer has for us, what our parents might have been telling us, and we want to implement, we want to make them proud, but we are so dismissive of our own ideas, kind of brush them off. And
Right.
I think really taking the time and courage to implement our ideas in this real world is very plausible. So I think that's very important to do this because it's a respect to our own self, to our own ideas and possibility to create something that only we can create because it's very unique. It's ours. Yes. What do you think about that?
I think it's important because we do need to not just, I mean, in the old days, they used to say you need that people had sometimes a hobby. And the word hobby was sort of used in a dismissive way, which was that you have some outside pursuit outside of your work, your family, your church, things like that. Then they just sort of lumped it into the category of your hobby. But your hobbies are important. Your outside projects and endeavors and things like that you are trying to get yourself good at and learn new skills and things like that. These are important things. They're not just, oh, it's just a hobby. I mean, it's an important thing. And some people are really, really good at these side projects. Some people call it a gig now or whatever, but it keeps the mind and body and soul alive. It's excellent for mental health. And we're at a point now in history where there's record amounts of people who really need help and support with mental health. And so these things that we used to sort of shelve on the side and call, oh, that's just a hobby or whatever, they're important. They're more important than people give them credence for.
Yeah, I agree. And how did this imagination journey start for you? Maybe you can give us a glimpse into your past. We can do some time travel, yes, into the past.
Right.
When did it start? And how did it start?
I think I have just always been very curious. And I've always kind of sought out answers for even like the most trivial little things. And the base series, that all started out like there is a bug, an insect that is on all 7 continents. And they have different names for it everywhere in the world. It is the bug that, and I think I'll show you, I may be able to show you a picture from inside the book here. These are my drawings of it, if you can see.
Yes, I can see.
Some people call that a potato bug.
Okay.
Some people call that a berry bug. It is the bug that looks like a tiny little beetle, but when you tap it, it turns into a ball and it can roll away. And so there's so many names for this: a pill bug, a potato bug, a beetle bug. Generally, it's found by damp things, like maybe a pile of wet leaves or under or almost near a slate or something like that. And I was always just very fascinated by that we live in a world with a creation with that much complexity at such a tiny scale. And so when I wrote about the BASE series, it is about military scientists, and they're stationed at top secret, the very, very most top secret military base in the world. And they are the best of the best. And they're very, very obsessed about their little specialized area of knowledge. So I started first with that little bug. And the gentleman you see in the middle of this book cover, he's got on a scientific lab coat. He's an actor, actually, Dennis Liverani, and he is portraying one of the characters in the base, the Bugman. And he is a military entomologist. And so his expertise is in insects, in bugs. And so what he does is he designs like military equipment and stuff based on the anatomy and some of the other attributes of insects. So, I mean, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to look at some of the things that the military has. Like, let's say, for example, a helicopter. It does have some attributes that are similar to a dragonfly. And there's many other examples in that the military has. Like when you look at tanks and you look at those rotating things at the bottom that propel them forward and some of the other things, there's attributes there. So the idea of having a bunch of scientists with different areas of expertise come together to create a new device for the military that has to meet specific criteria like temperatures and that it can withstand water and other conditions, because those are the conditions they would face in the battlefield. The idea of having a bunch of scientists pool their collective knowledge together to create a new invention, I thought that was really cool. And it is probably how it works in the military research labs, that you get a bunch of scientists together and they make something. But while they're trying to make that thing and they're perfecting it, in the book, there's a bunch of spies and thieves that are trying to steal it.
Yes, of course, of course. There should be something going on.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's amazing. And in fact, yes, many of technologies were developed based on what we know about animals, about insects. It's the whole area of biomimicry. And actually, it fascinated me for a long time. I remember I was getting books that were describing those translations from animals and insects into the technologies. So you're absolutely, absolutely on the right path with that. Why not? Why not to have this laboratory somewhere in the world? Who knows? That focuses just on that and is developing this weaponry. That's an amazing plot and an amazing idea of where scientists and engineers design new technologies based on nature's principles. And what I was thinking about when you just started talking about your book and that you did your research and then you saw that actually things like this exist, I remembered what I've heard from one of the sci-fi writers. I cannot tell which one was that exactly, but he said that we cannot come up with anything that hasn't existed yet. So any ideas that we have, actually any ideas, even the craziest ideas, yes, they are about something that exists. And I started thinking about this, no, maybe exist, but not at this particular time, but maybe it exists somewhere in the future, that the human mind always has some ideas that are in existence. What do you think about this? Especially you already have this experience where you came up with an idea and then you saw that, yeah, there is something like this going on.
Well, I think with the advent of the internet, which is now very old news, but with the advent of the internet, you can do the type of in-depth research easier.
Mhm.
And then you can find out, yes, there is a group in Australia. They have a lab there and they're researching insects. And you can find out what's happening in a research lab in like Colombia.
Mhm.
And it's just amazing that there's a lot of people around the world who do think alike and who are noticing different things. And it's not just the attributes of insects either. I mean, that's why we have people around the world coming up with different solutions and stuff for, like, say, cancer and things like that, that you have so many of these great minds that are coming to different conclusions. And then, thankfully, through this faster global communication, they can interact with each other and they can trade ideas with each other and make advancements happen faster.
What do you think about the generation of ideas, or where those ideas are coming from?
Well, I think sometimes it's from people who are brave enough not to squash them in their heads and not to conform and not to sort of obey what messages they get either internally or externally, to just conform and don't make any waves, otherwise someone's going to kick you down or whatever. That's part of where it comes from. But then also, we have ways now to connect with each other. We can reach out to others just like you and I are right now, that are worlds away from us and that have things in common. And then we'll either work together or realize that I'm not alone. There are other people that are exploring different avenues of research and have other ideas and are just constantly reaching out and learning.
And I would like to explore it further from the idea conception into the actual realization. It's like a creating that your own new reality from initial concept until it's a physically embodied product that you've created. So how did it work
Yeah.
for you? What was the next stage after you developed that idea?
Well, it's such a blessing to have some little project that you're tooling with that you can come home to after a day at work. And just after a day of being out in the real world and being in reality and doing all the things that we need to do, it's such a blessing just to have this like tiny little universe that you can not just create, but also make more elaborate and flesh out into three-dimensional thing. Because in a lot of ways, it's a refuge. Like last winter was like a really rough winter. And a lot of people around here get depressed when that happens because you can't really get out and you can't really interact and stuff like that. So if you have the ability to just zone in on this little universe that you're creating and get really involved with the characters and flesh them out and enjoy their interactions and stuff. I mean, especially villains. Villains are fun. I read that Darth Vader is like the most popular movie character and best known of all time. I mean, villains are just fun, and making villains and tinkering around with them, that's fun. And you don't care that it's been 2 degrees all week. You get to go home to your own personal Darth Vader and tinker with them.
Yes. What state are you in? You are saying that it's been cold and last winter and 2 degrees as well. Yeah.
Well, for a long time, I was in South Dakota, and that has some pretty intense winters.
Yeah.
Now I'm in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Our winters, it can get pretty bad, but it's not like South Dakota where the snow's over your head.
Mhm.
But we have some pretty intense wind and chill factors, and then cold, just dreary weather, clouds all the time and stuff.
Mhm.
So coming home to a villain, that's a lot of fun. And then a lot of us writers, we don't like to admit this, but I mean, actually killing people's fun. No, just kidding. I mean, but in your books, when someone needs to go, when you show them the door, whether it's by killing them or having them disappear or whatever, I mean, that's fun.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm sure that we would like to make some people disappear for real, but in the rules and norms and conventions of normal society, you can't just like hit your backspace button and get rid of someone. That doesn't work. But when you have someone in the book that you have really cultivated and made into like a real snarky person that nobody wants to like or whatever, it is occasionally fun to eliminate them.
Yeah, it looks like a certain form of psychotherapy, I think. So you're doing it through books in a way.
Yeah, it's fun because you get to do it legally. I mean,
Yes.
there is no body that you have to hide or dispose of in the middle of the night or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that brings me to actually another really interesting topic that just happened recently. I am filming a movie trailer for my book series because I'm going forward with the goal of taking my book series and making it into like a streaming or film type series. So we've done a number of scenes around the area. We've done all our indoor scenes in the winter. And this Sunday, I'm going to be shooting an outdoor scene. And that scene is a real live search party. There are search parties around the country. And I found a search party. They're excellent people. They really care deeply about what they do. And went to different locations to how to scout it from the point of like, can we park the vehicles here? Will that ground support it? If that ground is wet, will the vehicle sink? Or can we fit everyone over here? And technical things like that. But there was one area, they had some really intense stories. The first one, we went to one area that I called the boneyard because it is full of bones. Like if I had been a rookie and gone to this situation, I would have really been scared. I would have been calling the police right away. I found one, I found one, I found one. But the gentleman who is the co-founder of this group, he is very, very good at anatomy of not just humans, but of animals. And he was able to differentiate these skeletons that we found and say that's a deer skeleton based on like the base vertebrae. And so having him around was just really excellent because you're not going to panic or be traumatized like, oh my God, there's all these bones around here. Apparently, there's something there that the deer mistakenly ingest and it kills them. And that's why there's all these skeletons there. So we moved on to a different location. But when we were in the car, the woman who's really fascinating, her name is Marsha Black, and she has founded this group with her husband. And they've done many, many searches. She had the intuition and just the nagging suspicion that there was a man in this one particular site. And the police had searched it like 3 times. And she kept calling and kept saying, can we have one more search? She just felt it deep in her core. And she was not a blood relative of this person. Sometimes relatives can feel, they say that twins can feel like if their twin has an injury or something, that they have that intuition that's born into them. But she had no blood relation to this person. And she said, I know he's there. I can feel it. And so she persuaded the police to come out there one more time and to bring the cadaver dog again. And the police got out, they let the dog out, and the dog went straight to this spot and would not leave. And when they investigated and they excavated that one spot, they found him.
That is unbelievable. And again, how it's important to trust your own intuition.
They really inspired me. I see some of their posts on the internet and stuff, and they are very vocal about not giving up on people. Even though, I mean, a case has been for 15 or 10 years, or sometimes even 20 years, they won't give up. And so when I was putting the video images together, I wanted to have the first scene. It's ironic. The last scene that we're filming is going to be the first scene in the trailer, is with the search party. I sort of wanted to come up with a song that was along their mindset that they're not going to give up. And then there's other characters in the book when the villains take something. The base commander and the people at the military are like, oh no, we're not going to give up. We're not going to give up this fight. We're going to persevere. And there's a lot of tenacity in the good guys. But there's also in the villains. The villains are going to keep working hard to get something, even if they have no right to it whatsoever. But the search party made such an impression on me. They do a lot of posts on the internet and they're constantly looking for people. When they go to these remote areas, I mean, like that boneyard and stuff like that, they are very persistent. They are not going to give up. And so the song I wrote, which will be in the background for their sequence. It's almost like a military chant, and the people are chanting, "We're not going to give up."
Such a beautiful message. And now it transcends through all your book and now all the movies that we're not going to give up, especially through the movie.
Yeah, we have been recording it. And I think we got 4 of us together in the recording studio. And we were just chanting that we're not going to give up. And it sounded nice and everything when we played it back. But when we went to shoot a gym scene, there's a character in the upcoming book, book 3, which is the 3rd of the trilogy. And it's this character, Becca, that is being portrayed by this actress, Caroline Sears. When we filmed the scene in the gym, we wanted everyone to sort of move along to the music. So we played what we had. And there was about 12 actors in the gym, and they were all chanting along with it. And the gym was not your typical gym. It had been a warehouse. And it had really high walls, floor to ceiling brick walls, and just a lot of surfaces for that sound to bounce off of. And it sounded like 100 people were chanting. It was incredible. So I said to the sound and video engineer, this gentleman out here, Antonio Ford, who runs the Ford Music Center, I said to him, "Are you recording that?" I mean, all of us were just like, wow, that sounds huge. And so he was able to also record the audio there, even though we were just playing it for people to sort of step in time to. And then we added that to the recording we have. And it does sound like if you were to have like military chanting and stuff, it does sound like 100 people.
That is amazing.
And it really shakes you. But I think it's a good anthem for anybody. We can be struggling, we can be going through rough times or whatever. But just have that chant in your head, like, we're not going to give up. Just like that lady who from the search party, like she never gave up on that guy. And she told me, she said, "I was a pest. I was one of the people that the police really like to hate because I was calling them once a week and I was saying, hey, can we go out there again and look for him? That was the last known sighting. And I really kind of feel that he's there." And she was very persistent, but her persistence paid off. They found him and they gave his family closure. And she didn't give up. And so we're not going to give up.
Yeah. And I think it goes through what you do, because you were writing the book, you didn't give up, you finished already 2 books, now you're writing the 3rd one, also publishing, not everyone goes through that process. Now you're filming. That's a completely already different stage and process. And you're doing it and going through it. And not only that, you're writing music for your own movie, which is absolutely amazing. So definitely you're exemplifying this chant of not giving up.
Yeah, we're not going to give up. The filming has just been so incredible. I'm on the other side of the camera. I'm not in front of it. When you write a book, and I'm assuming you know this because you're a very creative person, and I've, delved into some of your podcasts and stuff. I know you have a creative spirit. But when you actually see the thing that you have created in front of you, also when you see other people portraying it, and then you realize it's almost like you're having a collective hallucination. Like everyone can see this thing that I could only see in my head. Like everyone's having the same dream now. So that's just, I can't even really put it into words, what that feels like, just to see all these people, get together and do something. You're like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So now it's not only your reality, it's a shared reality that actually is right there in front of you, in front of people, and will be in front of many people. So they will be able to interact with the reality that you've created, almost in real life.
Yeah, it will be something that others can see and hear and experience, when was something that was just this thing I came home to and started typing on a really cold and miserable day.
Yes, that's so interesting. But without you coming and typing it on that miserable day, you wouldn't be at the stage where you already start seeing it to unravel in this in our world, in our dimension. Yes, that we can experience it. That's absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
How did this idea of bringing your world from the book into the space that people can experience it and visually and auditory. How did this idea come to you? How did it develop?
I had been on a few podcasts, and after the podcast is over, the broadcast is over, sometimes the host will turn off the microphone and then they'll say, I have a few suggestions for you, or else they'll tell you, I need you to email me this and that so I can put it at the end of the broadcast and such. But I had a couple of the podcast people say to me, this would translate very well to film or a streaming series, and you should start doing the work of that. That really pushed me in that direction.
Yeah.
I sort of thought that if other people could see what I was seeing in my head and as a three-dimensional visual thing, that, I should take the leap of faith. And then also the actors and the owners of places that I have been to and stuff like that, they would all get something out of it. They would be able to show people, look, this is me acting, or this is our restaurant and things like that. Because, restaurant owners, they tend to think of their place, they're cooks, they tend to think of their place as just a place for food. But they can also now think of their place as during the slow months in the winter, we can film in here.
Yeah.
It opens up a lot of doors. And the area that I'm in Pennsylvania it's part of what we call the Rust Belt here, where the factories and industries used to be, and those factories are long gone. And so basically there's parts of it that a lot of people really kind of wouldn't want to live in, but they have become sort of art colonies. That's where you find us crazy writers, and you find the actors and the painters and the musicians and stuff. It's an art colony. And so it's wonderful to interact with those people and to reimagine these spaces, like that old abandoned building, like that would be a great movie set. And just bring more life into the area that a lot of people have sort of discounted and said, oh, that place is gone. Depends on how you look at it. It's thriving here for us art people.
Yeah, and this is what imagination does for us. It allows us to find new ways of looking at things, interacting with things, using them in a different way. So something that has been abandoned and already is almost rotten or something, but we can think, okay, how else we can use it? We're giving new life to things in a way. Yeah?
Well, I think it's important because decay is a part of life, but it doesn't have to be accepted. You can look at something and you could say, oh, that place is gone. There's certain things that are going to decay, but you can choose to let them decay, or you can choose to rejuvenate them. There are some things that you can intercede in. Like when my cat was 19, I couldn't rejuvenate her. That's just a sad fact of life. But you can take an old garden and go out there and really do some work on it and rejuvenate it, see new things coming and new things happening there and stuff. And you see that every spring. There's possibilities out there. And if you're willing to do some work, you'll reap the rewards of it.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. And in that regard, also, even with the cat, it passes away. We cannot do anything in the physical realm, but we can incorporate the memory of the cat in our fiction book. So it's all about imagination in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Like nothing is ever gone permanently if we don't keep a piece of that person or thing or place alive. And that goes for just so many things. Like there are recipes that aren't like popular anymore. But you can revive them on holidays and things like that and just keep traditions and a lot of things alive.
Alive or giving them a new life? Yes, absolutely. I agree. And there are so many things that are being dismissed just because we're in certain culture, at certain historical time, and giving those things a new life. I think it really enriches the environment, the world that we live in. It brings new colors of something forgotten, but now we bring it in a new and different, revived way. Yes, beautiful. And I want to get back to the topic of villains because you really emphasized it and it looks like you're passionate about the topic.
Yes.
Why do you think we need villains in our life? Because we see villains everywhere through whole history, in all myths, legends, movies. There is no plot without a villain. Why do we need them?
Well, I think
Mm-hmm.
part of the function of a villain is to give you like a compare and contrast. You can't really define something or someone as good without an example of the opposite. And
Mm-hmm.
so the villains exist to sort of help you define that. And the villains also set like
Yeah.
boundaries and set concrete examples of what not to do. The hard part in writing a villain is to write about someone who may have a lot of material success, a lot of wealth,
Mm-hmm.
and they may have accrued a lot of the rewards that we would think should go to a good person. But you don't want to glorify the villain. So you have to sort of walk sort of a tightrope with that. You don't want to say, wow, this person is successful, because to a lot of people, successful means monetary success and having a lot of possessions and things like that. Whereas to other people that I would call my favorite people, the good people, success means, wow, my organization like helped 100 needy families today. And I know this great lady in this area, Mary Maxborn, and she runs around giving teddy bears to kids in the community, teddy bears and books to children in need and stuff. And she's just the teddy bear lady. And I think it's just a wonderful thing that she runs around lifting spirits. I mean, if she hit the lottery tomorrow, she would not buy a huge house and a yacht and get a facelift and all these other things like that.
Mm-hmm.
She would go out and buy some more teddy bears so she can give them away. Her currency is different. And I like that. And so when you're writing about villains, you have to be careful, like, because a lot of villains are successful in a lot of ways, but you don't want to glorify their success. You want to still sort of make it apparent that this person is not someone to be emulated.
Yes, that's true, because we had so many examples when serial killers were glorified, and then there were people following and
Right.
also wanted to have this fame and glory and whatnot,
Yeah.
and doing this outrageous thing. So thank you so much for mentioning that. I've never thought that you really need to keep that line of portraying a villain but not glorifying it very carefully.
Well, writers, we have responsibilities. We really do. And anyone who has any sort of implement to a wider audience, I mean, podcasters or anyone, we always have a responsibility to use our communication tools for good. And anyone who has skills and stuff like that, like some of the scientists I talked to and stuff when I was doing my research, like they have tremendous mental capacities, but they're choosing use their mental capacities to try to cure illness, to try to make the world better. We all have some kind of a gift and something that we can bring to the world, but we all have to make a choice. Like, are we going to use our skills to do something positive and to help others? Or are we going to use our skills to do something that is not good? And sometimes the evil path has higher financial returns. But I love my teddy bear lady in my neighborhood. I love to use her as an example. Honestly, I could give her the winning lottery ticket, and the first thing she would do is go to the nearest store and buy teddy bears and hand them out to all the kids.
Yes, that is amazing. And I really admire what you said about responsibilities, that writers has responsibilities. And I think that is one of the major responsibilities. It reminded me of a book. It's called A Master and Margarita by Bulgakov. In this book, it portrays a Soviet era. I think it's Moscow, where a villain with his team is coming, and they are there to check how everything is going through so many years of this new era of Soviet Union and whatnot. And what they target a society of writers. So that's their target, and they're trying to see what's going on. Are they really writing what is coming from within, or they're just aligning themselves with the Soviet agenda and just trying to get all those goods that they can, all these financial and other benefits through just conforming with the communist agenda and whatnot. It's a devil with his team. And that's interesting that they are targeting specifically writers. And this is exactly because that as writers, people has this tremendous responsibility to bring the real world that is true to their beliefs, to something that can ignite other people, ignite their imagination, ignite their thought, and not to be dependent on politics, some agenda that is just being imposed on people and whatnot. Thank you for reminding about that.
Yeah, well, that you see examples of this all around you. Like sometimes they caught someone in a supermarket and he had a cleverly disguised baby carriage and he was stealing things. So, very smart man, very intelligent way he had rigged up that baby carriage. But if he had used his intelligence in a positive way or at a workplace or stuff, he wouldn't be getting like these random amounts of income here and there. It would be more regular and he could advance. But we also see sometimes in other examples, like once in a while, they'll find out like a politician who, say, for example, did the wrong thing and was very financially rewarded with it over time. Then one day the ceiling just dropped out. They get exposed or it doesn't work or people are tired of him and they want the new flavor. Things do have a way of working out. And sometimes we have to just keep the faith and just stay on the right path. You may see others around you that really look like they're benefiting from doing things differently and stuff like that. But you have to follow your mind. You have to follow your convictions. That's what the heroes in the book series, the base, do. They use their talents and they use their time to create this device to protect humankind and protect their country and everything like that. And they stay the course. They do see the spies have a lot more wealth and a lot more things than they have. But the spies are also, with their actions and behavior, going to compromise everyone's security. And so they're just not going to do that. They're not going to do something for a short-term financial gain that could impact them negatively later down the future, not just them, their families, their neighbors, their loved ones. So they take the right path. So there's an undercurrent of good and evil in the book. And of course, we know we have villains and villains are evil and they're fun, but it does serve a purpose.
Yes, and this is exactly what I was just thinking, that it serves the purpose that villains are helping us to see, are we truly staying on our course? Are we true to what we're doing? Are we willing to go through with our beliefs, with what we do, despite things? Yes, and maybe possibilities to get, more financial rewards, to get certain other benefits, to get famous and whatnot, because this is what villains are kind of compelling us. But they're doing it just because I think it's their function to help us to really become certain about what we do, to become stronger in what we do. So they're our friends in a way, because they're just helping us to really become very, very clear about our path.
Yeah.
What do you think about this function of villains?
Well, dysfunctional villains are a lot of fun too. There's examples of like the mad scientists and things like that, especially like in the Frankenstein series. You have some villains that are just a little bit bonkers, and that can be really good. But I have to say that I do agree with you, like the glorifying of the serial killers. Like I was looking for a deck of cards and I found that they actually have a deck of cards that has a bunch of serial killers on it, and people collect that. And I don't want to put my money into something that is going to benefit that. So I made a choice not to. And I got a plain old deck of cards. no regrets. I was really surprised to see that. I understand there's books written on them. I understand that there was one famous serial killer in this country that apparently painted pictures of clowns. And people are now buying his paintings, which I wouldn't do, even if I really liked the picture. But I never expected to see a deck of cards immortalizing them. But I mean,
Yeah.
just not my thing. So I didn't contribute to it.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. I would like to talk a little bit about the process that you have writing books because it was so interesting. I had this story that on accident I received the whole package of books. I've never ordered it, but I received it and it was addressed to me, so I opened it and I see this book that I never knew about. And in this book, the author of the book describes in a way how she writes books. So, for example, she is flying on a plane and she hears some conversation going on. And she writes what was said, who was there, and she kind of is observing people around and writing this in her notebook. And then she is bringing those stories, weaving them into the plot here and there, and she creates those books. So, of course, I figured out and I sent it away to whom it belonged. It was a company, just on accident sent it to me instead of other people. But I still remember that glimpse into somebody's writing. So, how do you approach the process of writing? Where do you get all the plots and characters and whatnot?
Well, someone said to me once that there's kind of two types of writers, that there's the people that are character driven. And then from the process of creating a few characters, then they sort of pit the characters against each other and around each other. And then a plot evolves and a story evolves with that. But then there's the second type of writers, he said, are plot driven. Those are people that already have sort of a formula of what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have to come up with the characters to make those things happen. I think that I am more character driven. Like I will notice, like I noticed that bug, and then I said, that is such a complex and such a tiny creature. And I did some research on the bug. I found out it's all over the world. And so from that, I have the bug scientist, and then I have the other scientists, and then you're going to have to pit them against something. So we're going to pit them against the villains. And then you have to have the villains have an arsenal of attributes and characteristics and stuff that they can tangle with and stuff. And then from that comes the plot and all the other things. It just evolved. It got so crazy. You know, I'd wake up at 2 a.m. and then be typing something down because I didn't want to lose an idea. I'm like that.
Yes.
That's what I think I am. I think I'm one of the character driven writers that I'll write once. I'll form those characters and then I'll make them interact, and then it will spiral out of control.
Yes, and when the ideas are coming from, you just noted that sometimes you might dream about the idea or about the character. How else do you get this information that you implement in your books?
Let me see. Some of it is because it is a science fiction thing. There were lots of research involved because I couldn't make something happen and then not be factually accurate about it. So I had to do a lot of research to be able to show that this could be the outcome of that situation and that this was plausible. So it's a combination of imagination and a lot of research to make sure that at least the science part of the fiction is plausible, not just plausible, but then also partially feasible, like it could be something that could eventually happen. And the attributes of the invention that they're making, some of those attributes are things that are really worthwhile, that if they did come to fruition and if they were completed, they would help a lot of people. And so I don't want to spoil the whole thing, but the actor over here, his name is Doug Petrick, and he is portraying the scientist Cullen. And Cullen works to create artificial cartilage that is synthetic and not biodependent and can also replicate on its own. Now, if that were something that were out there, I mean, granted, this is being used in a military invention, but if this were something that were out there on the free market, it could get rid of the need for knee replacements. You would just get inoculated with some of it, and you wouldn't have to go through a surgery and physical therapy and all of the other things that someone with a knee replacement would have to do. I was encouraged to find out that there are actual research programs right now happening to make artificial cartilage a reality.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing it if it happens.
Speaking about that, there is a notion that many of science fiction inventions that we had in books, it became a real product, a real thing in the future. What do you think about that? And maybe you can recall some examples if you paid attention to that transferability of the ideas from science fiction into real life.
Well, satellites definitely came about through the influences of science fiction writers. And then the whole internet and the idea of satellites also being able to spy on us in some way, that also came about through some dystopian science fiction books, actually. And so it's not a stretch, to think that, science sometimes imitates art or vice versa, because it happens.
And it's possible that I think science fiction writers are opening this a window of imagination, that maybe this is something that was missing for people that, like you said, don't allow themselves to really think creatively, but they have all the possibilities to implement those new ideas. So it's just that little spark that is needed to ignite this new work and create something that wasn't available before.
It's very exciting because I think the people in the creative side, and science is creative, it is an art form, but the people that are on the fringe of the creative side, us writers who are strictly writing about imaginary worlds and stuff like that, we can validate some of the ideas that a real scientist has and just give them the impetus to push forward. Like if this other person across the globe who is writing a fiction book with this idea in mind, if they can see what I can see, then let's make it real.
And why science fiction? Why did you get interested specifically in science fiction, not in any other genre, creating different realities, different type of worlds? Why science fiction for you?
Well, I think others have described my work as science fiction. I would describe it as suspenseful fiction with a side dose of science. Like, think of it as the French fries. That's your science. I mean, the science isn't so hardcore and in depth, and there aren't spaceships and aliens. But these guys, their job is they are military research scientists. But it really is a very roller coaster ride, suspenseful fiction.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do world building as authors do. You're sort of taken into their little universe, but it's not like another galaxy universe. It's happening on this planet, and you can imagine some of the characters and some of the things that they encounter.
And what type of work motivates you? What type of books in suspenseful fiction or in science fiction? What inspires you?
I spend so much time in biography and autobiography, and I find other people's real world experiences and stuff from completely different points of view in different places and times in history. That's dominantly what I read. I also read a lot of topical things, like I read news and things like that. But as far as books are concerned, biographies are really an eye opener. There's some people our world has sort of reduced to like two sentences, like Rosa Parks. And everyone said like she was famous for being the lady who sat in the front of the bus and didn't move. But when you read her autobiography and she tells you about her whole life, I mean, there is just so much more to her than that. And to set the record straight, like she was sitting in the middle of the bus when the bus driver told her to move when they got a lot of white passengers. And she is a civil rights icon here, as I'm sure you know. But I mean, her life was just sort of boiled down to one sentence. A lot of people, they're sort of just known for like one little thing, like one sentence or even half a sentence. And when you read their autobiographies or biographies, you get the whole picture of their lives and all of the different things that they were involved in and they experienced. And it's pretty intense.
What those autobiographies mean to you? Why it attracts you so much to investigate them, to read about those people and their lives?
Well, I think one of the best autobiographies and favorite books of mine is Jimmy Carter's book. And he was the president of the United States. And he started out in a peanut farming family. And the book is called An Hour Before Daylight. The family would have to wake up an hour before daylight, and they would have to get out and start farm work. Farm work is not like office work. You don't get a day off. The cows, the animals, they have to be fed. The plants have to be taken care of. You have to do it no matter what. And so he grew up very, very disciplined. And even on a day where, or part of a day where you think there's nothing to do, that is the day where you have to work twice as hard because the next day you could have too much to do. And they worked before the sun went up and they stopped working after the sun went down. They had really long days doing that. And not a lot of people would have thought that someone who was the president of the United States came from such humble beginnings. Their first home didn't even have plumbing, but he did. And then he went on to do such great things. He started the Carter Foundation and has helped eradicate many diseases in all over the world. And he was a volunteer with his wife, Rosalind, on Habitat for Humanity, which is known worldwide for building homes for people in need. He had such an amazing life, and you never would have expected like someone from his humble beginnings to experience all the things that he did, but he did.
So it inspires you.
Yeah.
And I agree in that regard. What I found when I was studying, that students who came from farming families who were working on the farms were doing the best in our class. And it is because they had this work ethics.
Wow.
So if they create a schedule to prepare for exam, there is no question that they will follow through that schedule and they will do all the work and they will be ready. They have that discipline and this ability to work as much as it's needed to get the work done and to accomplish the goal.
Well, they also have time management skills.
Yes.
They understand that this has to be completed, and so do these other 10 other things. And so they find ways to innovate and learn how to do something in less time because they know that they have like 9 other things waiting in sequence that need to be done. And so they're very good at figuring out new ways to do things and sort of engineering solutions to making things more efficient and working together more efficiently because they have to.
And speaking about engineering solutions and autobiographies, of what it reminded me about Elon Musk. Of course, right now, there is political agenda attached to that, so I don't want to touch that, but he is an engineer. And also what is relevant to the science fiction, I think that he created this company Neuralink of connecting the brain and the computers that we can control different devices by the use of our brain, which is actually my specialty as a scientist. That's why I know about this a lot. But he was asked many times, so what books do you read? What do you recommend? What really inspires you and motivates you and gives the ideas? And this is exactly what he said, autobiographies and biographies of people, of presidents, people who succeeded, inventors, engineers, political figures, various biographies, but this is what he recommends. And now I understand better also his take on it.
Yeah, there's a college out here in the Pittsburgh area. They're not affiliated at all with Mr. Musk. And going back, I would say at least 5 years, maybe even 10 years ago, they started to look at the connection between the neurons and the computers and getting them to mesh and perform things, perform tasks. So I remember seeing a demonstration out there where they had these students try to get someone to just on mental command make that bowling ball that they saw on a video screen veer to the left or veer to the right.
Yeah.
And they were able to do that. And they can read those things, those impulses in the brain, and then apply that to the screen and stuff. So there were other things that they did. They probably have advanced that much, much more now.
Yes, one of the strongest teams of building those interfaces in research settings right now, it is University of Pittsburgh.
Yes, that's where it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and after that they had robotic hands where people who were paralyzed, knocked down, they were able to actually feed themselves by using simply brain activity and manipulating the robotic hand.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. And the robotic hand thing, I did extensive research on that because I have a character in the base series, which had done a lot of research in making robotic hands.
Yeah.
I did a lot of research on that too, because I was just fascinated by the things that these things could do. And they have evolved so much.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of really dynamic research happening in that area. So I'm fortunate that I'm living in Pennsylvania because the media out here, once in a while, when those schools come up with something, the local media will cover it.
Yeah.
So I get to see the new innovations that these people and the improvements that they have made in these discoveries and inventions. It's great.
Yes, absolutely. And if you need any expertise or any questions, you can always talk to me. And also, maybe this would be helpful. This, our podcast, Neurocareers, Doing the Impossible. So it's about all people who are pursuing or want to pursue a career in neuroscience and neurotechnologies. Specifically, those neurotechnologies, brain-computer interfaces, connection between the brain and the computers. We have over 100, episode 108 already. And specifically, there are episodes about speech decoding, so neuroprosthesis for speech, people who cannot speak. It's possible to decode information already directly from the brain using extensive language AI models and type. And actually now it's even possible to vocalize using the wedding recordings when the person still was able to speak. They're extracting this information, training the AI to speak like they were speaking. And then when they're decoding this information, they're outputting this speech as their own language. It sounds like they would be speaking.
Yeah, I did research also in that area because the book goes through a couple of different scientists and their disciplines. And they keep adding in scientists and then adding in tasks and things that they have to invent and stuff. So anyways, I did have to do research on scientists who had some of that discipline, not just in the speech, but also the facial mannerisms. And it is very interesting because I had to study twins. And twins are really interesting because you can even separate them at birth and they will have some of, because the vocal cords and stuff are, the genetic makeup is identical, and I'm talking identical twins here. You will have a lot of similarities in the voice and inflection, but I mean, there are environmental factors that could change that. But they will have a lot of speech patterns and other attributes to their verbal communication, which are also identical. And then the mannerisms that they have, like when they're going, wow, and things like that, which are also identical. So they had to, I won't give the whole surprise away, but I had to have the scientists replicate a mask using a twin to make a perpetrator believe that he was talking to the other twin. And so the mask was able to replicate some of the mannerisms, and then the speaker was able to convey some of the same speech patterns. So it was believable enough to that person that he was talking to the bad twin, and he was going to give the bad twin something that he had stolen.
Yeah.
But in reality, they found the good twin, and they were able to use that person as a model to generate the bad twin.
That's amazing. What's fascinating here is that your fictional scenarios, like decoding facial expressions, mirror real advances in BCI. These concepts aren't only speculative anymore. They're part of what's actively shaping the future of technologies. I'm already so curious about your books. I see there are so many twists and plots and innovations of science that are happening right now. So very exciting to read your book and watch a movie when it comes out. That's absolutely amazing. And yes, those things there are happening. We can now decode facial expressions,
Yes.
and generate synthetic language. And now we have digital twin, but it's actually our own twin. All the processes, everything that's going on in our body, it can be recreated as our like digital copy. So there are amazing things, and I'm so glad that you are curious about all this and implementing all this in your books. So
yeah, the thing is that we writers and we scientists and everyone, we just have to, like we started off this conversation, we have to keep an open mind. We have to reach out and just not be afraid of being rejected or made fun of everything. We have to reach out and see what is out there and really explore it and not be afraid of exploring.
Yes.
I think the research, especially during some of the really dreary months here, was such a gift. Being able to see the possibilities and the other things that people were really looking into. And it wasn't just from a military standpoint that these people are doing that. Imagine how many stroke victims can benefit from having their speech returned and having just in general the dignity of their own independence being returned to them because of brave people who were just willing to challenge the norms and sort of look out and say, you know what, I think this could work. Let's try it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is where storytelling meets science and tech careers. Whether somebody is writing code or writing fiction, the process of iterating, refining, and staying committed to a vision is the same. Your experience holds lessons for researchers, innovators, and creatives alike. And for those listeners who are on this path and they have the idea and they might want to give this idea a life, a new life, what would be your recommendation? How to start writing? At whatever stage you are, you can provide our listeners with advice from that perspective.
What I would tell people is that aim high. Like, don't just put something out and have it be junk. If you want to play in the real arena and be taken seriously, you are going to have to be as good as like your favorite book. And so you're going to have to fight with your manuscript. You're going to have to admit some days that I can't believe I thought that that was good. I need to fix that. I need to make it better. That's what takes it a step above being just something that you play around with once in a while. Like I play around on a bass or something like that. That's fun, but I'm not a bassist. You know, I wouldn't go out in front of an audience like 7 nights a week doing that. But as far as the writing is concerned, it's a daily discipline. And I fight with myself on it. I look at a sentence and I say, is that good enough? I mean, the sentence before I used the same word. And so you don't want to have that word just keep showing up all the time. I mean, you need to expand your vocabulary. You need to not start every sentence off with the word the. You need to improve yourself. That's what I would tell someone, to try to be as good as what you think is good and to be as good as what you think is your favorite. And I don't say that to intimidate people or anything. I just say that to people to, you know, aim higher, reach higher, and see what you're capable of, see your potential, and you'll be surprised.
Do you recommend any courses anywhere to learn, writing classes, anything like that? Or it's more just really tuning into your highest example that you have for yourself and thinking, okay, how can I achieve that?
Well, I mean, I know a lot of people who belong to writing groups and they swear by it. And for someone like me, I think I spend more of my time reading other people's stuff. That's where I take that leftover time. I make sure I have time to read every day and read other people's things and stuff. And that is where I get my brain exercise. That's the most effective use of my time. But I think you have to read or write something every day. And writing groups, they help others, and connecting with other authors. I've connected with a few and talking about the creative process. I do that in podcasts and stuff. That's always interesting. You can feel validated. I mean, when you talk about like, if you're a creative person, you have at least 3 unfinished projects around your place. You can probably relate to that because you're a creative person. You got to have at least 3 things that you aren't finished with yet. And we have those things in common, and it's part of the way we're wired.
Thank you so much. Where can our listeners and viewers find your books?
Okay, on Amazon or on my website, I am Dante, Dante, Terese is the last name.
Mm-hmm.
And that is also the name that's on my website, DanteTherese.com.
Mm-hmm.
The Amazon links are there.
Mm-hmm.
That's where people can go. And I hope they do. I hope they enjoy it. There are audio recordings of the books as well. And the actor who did them is amazing. I just find it incredible that this guy can portray 8 different voices and remember them all and have them pop up and down like that. I mean, just amazing. So I hope people will visit and stay in touch with me, check into the website and let me know what you think about things and stuff. I mean, I love being in touch with people and talking to that whole community. And the videos will show up on the website, but also on YouTube. And on YouTube, the YouTube channel is the title of the books series, which is The Base. And those are the books that we were discussing today. The Base Book 1, The Base Book 2, and I am working on Book 3. It is a trilogy, folks, and it is happening in film very soon, we hope. We're working on it.
Now, that is amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dante. I'm looking forward to the third book and to the movie. Hopefully, we will see each other again.
Thank you.
And we will follow up on that. And I definitely recommend to all our listeners to read because it's really exciting. As a scientist now, I am so excited about these books. I want to read all of them. So thank you very much, Dante. Is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners as we're ending our podcast? Maybe there was something I didn't ask, but you still want to share it.
I would really tell people to just really investigate things and trust your instincts. And there's a lot going on now. There's all kinds of things happening in the news and stuff. And AI is really sort of coming everywhere now. It used to be something that was hidden, but now you'll ask Google a question and the AI will answer. It'll be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Where's my thesaurus? Or we're living in a very rapidly changing world.
Yes.
I think the previous generations, like my grandmother's generation, the world changed. And it did change a lot, but not as rapidly.
Yeah.
The changes that we are experiencing are very, very rapid. So I think to have the agility and flexibility to move forward with all of those changes, you have to keep your mind sharp, have one foot in the science world, don't be afraid of it, and just be inquisitive and just go with the flow.
Yes. Thank you so much. Dante, we wish you all the best. And can I have one more question? I wanted to ask you, what do you think about the AI and writing? Do you still write everything yourself or you are using AI in one or another capacity? And where do you see the function capabilities of AI and its integration into the writing process?
Okay, for my own self, I write my books and I do not let AI write it. But I will tell you an interesting story. Periodically, I help out some other authors. I helped another author in town here put his most recent book on Amazon, and I taught him how to do that and everything. And he's a school teacher, and he teaches fairly young kids. I mean, they're not even in junior high school yet, so figure under the age of 12, okay? And he was telling me that a lot of the children are turning in their homework assignments that are written by AI, and that the parents and the teachers have apps now where they will scan their homework to see if AI wrote it. I just found that fascinating. But apparently it's that pervasive now that when the kids turn in their homework, they put it into that scanning first, and then they grade the homework after the ones that were not written by AI.
Yeah.
I think it is going to change thinking and how people think if they allow that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we need to think. We can't allow ourselves to sort of become lazy and have the devices do the thinking for us after a while, because we will, as someone who works in neurobiology and stuff like that, would understand, when you utilize the different parts of your brain, you are keeping all of those communications and neurons and pathways connected. And like anything else, if you're not using all of your muscles, they atrophy. And so if people get overly dependent on the technology and allow it to think for them, then your thinking starts to atrophy. And I don't know what will happen with that. But in my case, I'm too inquisitive to let it happen. I just think about thinking, if that makes sense.
Yes, and maybe that's a story for another science fiction book. What happens if people become too dependent on AIs? I think it's a big topic right now. But thank you so much, Dante. It's been a great pleasure. I appreciate our conversation.
Me too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on. And it was really a pleasure to talk with someone who's so intelligent and who's willing to think and explore other things and have an open mind about ideas.
Dear Neurocareers podcast listeners, thank you for joining us on this imaginative journey through fiction, science, and the creative spirit that drives innovation. As Dante Therese reminds us, doing the impossible starts with being willing to dream boldly and work persistently, even when the path ahead isn't yet mapped. Whether you're a neuroscientist, an aspiring neurotechnologist, or someone exploring new career paths, remember this: the future is often written first in the pages of imagination before it's built in labs, clinics, and startups. For more episodes blending science, creativity, and career breakthroughs, subscribe to Neurocareers, Doing the Impossible. And if you've been inspired by today's conversation, share this episode with someone who's ready to bring their vision to life. If you are looking for more guidance on advancing your neurocareer, book a free consultation with me, Dr. K, your podcast host and neurocareers coach at the Institute of Neuroapproaches, the only career service dedicated specifically to the needs of professionals in neurotech. Let's take the next step toward your neurocareer success together. In addition to free consultations, the Institute of Neuroapproaches offers a variety of services designed to help you thrive in neurotech. First, professional development planning. We help you create a tailored career development plan, identify knowledge gaps, and equip you with the tools needed to achieve your goals in neuroscience and neurotechnologies. Second, resume and cover letter review. Get expert feedback on how to craft documents that are specifically designed for job opportunities in the neurotech field. Third, interview preparation. Sharpen your interview skills through mock interviews and targeted feedback, including soft skills, hard skills in neurotech, BCIs, e.g., MEG, live coding, and presentation preparation. 4. Networking and job search strategy. Learn how to effectively network and uncover job opportunities while standing out in the competitive neurotech job market. 5. Negotiation and salary advice. Receive expert guidance on negotiating salaries and benefits and determining a fair salary range for your desired position. All this and more can be found at www.neuroapproaches.org. Again, www.neuroapproaches.org. So, what are you waiting for? Let's navigate the path to success in the world of neurocareers together and turn the impossible into possible. We're looking forward to working with you.